Good evening and welcome. This is the debate part of the evening. One of the guests already spoke before, Professor Julian Barbour. The ones that were here before with us know already as well what's his subject matter, mathematics and physics without time. With us we also have Professors Virginia Chaitin and Professor Gregory Chaitin. Professor Virginia Chaitin is a philosopher and epistemologist, studies history of science as well, has specialities metabiology, and what that is, maybe we will have a chance to discuss it. And Professor Gregory Chaitin is a mathematician and computer scientist. Many of you may know him from information theory. What we will discuss today, it will also be, I hope so, a surprise for us and for our guests, and Professor Reverend Michael Heller, as much a guest as a host at the Copernicus Festival, cosmologist and philosopher. So welcome, big applause for our guests, thank you. And my name is Łukasz Lamża, and I will be asking the questions and drilling our guests and allowing you to speak if you wish so. And the subject of the talk today and of the debate today is beauty as the criterion of truth. And allow me just a very short introduction, just a minute, and then I will allow you. Did you test your microphones? Could you please do so? I mean, it's, yes, excellent. Yes, we have banging, excellent. Well, the one thing that is quite interesting is just conceiving beauty as the criterion of truth, because to an ancient mind, it may sound perfect. It's a perfect idea. The connection between truth and beauty, that's fine. But to a 20th century mind, it may seem it's a wicked idea. Now, if you take a look at what's happening in 20th century epistemology, it's a very delicate attempt at weeding out anything from theories of truth that's not mathematical, that's not precise. We had a beautiful tradition of analytic epistemology trying to define truth as clearly as possible. So in formal sciences, we have the axiomatic system, we have axioms, and anything that's conceivably consistent with them is true. If it's not, it isn't. We have empirical science where we have observations. It's all nice and clear. But it's only nice and clear on the papers of epistemologists. Now, at the very same time, I dare say, the physicists are, well, they did a dirty trick on us. Because when you read what Einstein said, what Dirac said, what Heisenberg said as well, is that a physical theory must have an inner beauty. And this is how you realize that you got a good theory. Feynman wrote about it beautifully, by the way. So my question is, the theory that beauty is a criterion of truth, I mean, it sounds nice, doesn't it, right? The world is beautiful, so the theory has to be beautiful as well. But does the theory itself, is it just nice and cute, or does it actually work? So is there anyone who would like to defend the beauty theory of truth? Aha, no one.
Yes.
Please do.
Well,
microphone, please.
There are many ways of doing pure mathematics, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm not interested in applications or the real world, and the only reason for doing pure mathematics for me is the search for beauty. If an idea isn't beautiful, we're wasting our time. In other words, what I like in pure mathematics is that its beauty, the beauty of the ideas, can transcend the ugliness of the everyday world and show that everything is not at the sad level of we human beings, that there are things that are beautiful that transcend all of this. And in particular, in pure mathematics, one has a great deal of flexibility. Because if I'm trying to create a new theory and the definitions lead to ugly proofs or no proofs, I have the freedom to change the definitions. I can change the statement of the problem until I get a beautiful proof. And it's not normally appreciated that you do that in pure mathematics. And what is the criterion that you found the right theory? Well, the reason is that the proofs have to be beautiful and natural, you see. Then you think, I have the right approach.
Well, we have cases of nice theorems proved by 400 pages of arcane mathematics, right? And it's ugly, like Weyl's proof, yes? It's ugly, but it works.
Yeah, well, I personally... Every scientist has his or her scientific personality. And I admire Wiles for doing that work. But as far as I'm concerned, all I want is beauty and understanding. For me, it's an epiphany. A beautiful proof is one where it's totally unexpected. It seems very surprising, but afterwards, it looks inevitable. And you have an epiphany. You feel that you've been elevated to a viewpoint where it seems natural and you understand. So this is the kind of mathematics that I personally appreciate. Now, there are as many kinds of mathematics as there are mathematicians. And this viewpoint that I'm espousing, as you said, is not fashionable nowadays. But
I would say
yes.
it is.
Is it?
It
In
is.
pure math, we can still get away with it.
Because it's pure creation, basically.
It is.
But may I ask, we had the lecture about your alternative way of stating dynamics, basically. Do you pursue it for aesthetic reasons as well?
In the first place, undoubtedly, to try and understand the world. And I think, am I all right now? You can, yes. Undoubtedly, for me, and I think most physicists at least, it's to try and understand the world. Can I mention, for those who don't know it, there's a very lovely book was published about a year ago by the Nobel Prize winner Frank Wilczek called A Beautiful Question. And he says, in his view, the first really wonderful scientific discoveries were the Pythagorean discoveries to do with harmony. And there are two things. First of all, there's one is where it goes linearly with the length of the string, and one where it goes quadratically. And the second one where you hang the weights, and it's a quadratic relation. That's quite sophisticated. But for me, I mean, you'll find all of these great scientists, Einstein, Dirac, particularly Dirac, just said unless the theory is beautiful, it couldn't be right. Now, actually, I'm not aware that Dirac anywhere actually says what he meant by beautiful. I think Gregory has done much better. I mean, you've actually spelt out what you mean by it. In that sense, I mean, that's what I meant there, and I think it may be something to do with resonance. Why does music?
Excuse me, with what?
Why does music resonance?
Oh,
it resonates.
Sorry.
Why does music affect us so deeply? And I mean, this is spelt out beautifully in Frank Wilczek's book. How he talks about how the vibrations in the air are translated through the cochlea into vibrations in your ear, and then into chemical signals in your ear, and it's something to do with your inner neural networks picking up those simple ratios, 2 to 3, those, and the octave, and certainly for me, it's resonance. I mean, at the film show last night, I was saying how I'd read a few words of Leibniz where he says, positive reality is variety. And for some reason that just resonated with me. It made a huge impression on me. And I thought that's a beautiful idea. And I think it's because it resonates. I think it could be that. It's there. To that you can add the sort of arguments that Gregory is, but I mean, these Hamilton equations, I listed why I would say they're beautiful. It's their simplicity, it's the amount they can explain, their symmetry. There is a symmetry. So that's how I would attack that problem.
But quite honestly, modern physics is terribly ugly when you compare it to classical physics. I mean, let's take an idea of a point particle. Now that's simple, it's beautiful, All of the mass concentrated at a single point, all of the charge concentrated at a single point, simple physical law, distance squared. It was supposed to be so beautiful. Now you take the standard model Lagrangian, yes? 20 pages of arcane mathematics. Now, honestly, is this more beautiful? And may I ask the question to Professor Heller, because I once attacked Professor Heller with the same question and he dodged, so I would like to do this another time. Is modern cosmology, the modern view of nature, actually beautiful, or is it just we are so happy that we understood it finally, we are so relieved that we understand it, that we just tell everybody it's beautiful? I mean, honestly, is it really beautiful?
Every stick has two ends. On the one hand, it is beautiful. It gives us a lot of information, of understanding. It gives us a very beautiful, impressing panorama of cosmic evolution. On the other hand, it is a conglomeration of various physical theories. It's not a one physical theory. So it is a combination. And in my view, mathematical theory or mathematical structure is beautiful if it has a beautiful architecture in itself. So in this respect, we say that the best model we have today, cosmological model, is the so-called concordance model. So we pick up from various cosmological models some parts, and we form a single model which the best corresponds to our empirically available data. And this is not very beautiful.
There's a lot of fudge factors. You have to enter these little numbers. You're never sure what they are. It just almost works.
But it also depends on your feeling of beauty, of your psychology. Because if somebody likes patchworks, this will be for him or for her very beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And Professor Virginia Chaitin, I have a question as well, because I watched a lot of your videos in preparing to this, and you deal with a lot of different theories, especially in biology, and comment on them. Are there any ugly ones in there? I mean, because what I basically understand is you're preparing this is the metabiology part, yes? I would say it's beyond theoretical biology. It's like abstract biology or something like this. Where's the beauty part come in this? Because again, because I'm asking all of you the same question. I think what you're doing is not really that beautiful. I mean, there's not that much nature in it, isn't it? The nature in the sense of an actual living system, an actual living ecosystem. It's very cut and dry. So how would you comment on that in the aesthetical terms?
The aesthetics of metabiology, if I would have to define in a very short sentence, is the aesthetics of creativity. Creativity in the sense of something that cannot be predicted, cannot be derived from what exists already. So for some people, this is not a comfortable aesthesis, a comfortable feeling at all. I have talked about metabiology, and every time I emphasize that part of the greater part of the creativity in metabiology comes from randomness, then I can sometimes tell in the audience's faces, I can sometimes actually get a question as to how come overemphasizing on randomness can lead us to a vision of creativity in nature. If biologically we have been having so many theories stressing upon other let's say, principles that would guide evolution. So connecting creativity and randomness is maybe not a fashionable aesthetic position. However, I like to think, and then I am very happy that we may have artists here. When I talk to artists, they understand perfectly well that in their creative process, they feel that they are definitely in touch with a random event or a random pursuit. They're not directed. So they feel that they're being creative when they are in touch with randomness. So that would be the beauty, in the kind of beauty you would have in metabiology.
I think that in this particular company, you would find much understanding to the idea that beauty and order comes from randomness. I think if we made a vote on the stage, we would get 5 pro and 0 against, right? But you have to steer it a bit, don't you? So or not?
I would have an open mind on that at the moment. I would certainly go a long way with you, Virginia, in saying that where some artistic inspiration comes from is completely unpredictable. I think it comes out of the totality of the universe. I'll repeat again what I said at the film show last night. Janet Baker, the great alto, I heard her on the radio, and she was asked if, when she's in an opera and she performs one evening and it goes particularly well, does she attempt to repeat it that way the next time? Absolutely not. That would destroy the magic of the now. And of course, this is what the artists all feel. And I want to come back to Wilczek's book. He says his favorite Chinese cookie, you know, these things, the sayings that you get in Chinese restaurants, is the work will teach you how to do it. While you're working on it, suddenly some inspiration comes. Where it comes from, heavens only knows. And can I just come back about quantum mechanics and whether it's ugly? Again, I recommend Wilczek's book. He's absolutely categoric that, properly understood, atoms are musical instruments. They are. They satisfy the equations of musical instruments, and he shows pictures of the wave functions of quite highly excited states of atoms, and they are as beautiful as that picture of Saturn that I showed.
I mean, isn't he just trying to sell books?
Frank Wilczek is a very fine man. He's not just selling books. He said that book. I know him a bit, and I heard his talk.
But it does sound a little bit, you know, postmodern.
I would say that's very unfair, if I may say so. Before you say that of him, read the book, please.
Fair enough, fair enough. I mean, we're talking about one of the highest quality minds in contemporary physics, I know. But I'm just trying to be really fair with the idea. I mean, if it works, right? The whole idea that the beauty of the equations and the beauty of the mathematics. I mean, I'm not going to do this, but if we made a vote right here, we would probably get a lot of voices that mathematics is basically not so much beautiful. It does work, it does have a lot of truth in it, but saying is beautiful is trying to win the audience, basically.
Well, isn't illumination beautiful? That's what you have when you discover a beautiful proof. You have this.
But how many people do actually discover beautiful proofs?
This transcendent. Well, there are all kinds of creativity. I can be creative in my research work, but it's also creative to improvise a meal based on whatever you find in the refrigerator, or. You know, there are many kinds of creativity. When people were artisans before the factory system, everyone who made a piece of furniture, everyone who did painted dishes was being creative. Now the factory system eliminates creativity from human beings and everything is done by machines, which I think is unfortunate. But if you look at people in a more primitive setting, they're being creative all the time. So I think creativity is something that is natural to the human being, to the human soul, to our strivings, and if it's frustrated, I think it's bad for the human beings.
So what do you think about automatic proof finding? Like the four-coloring problem?
For the automats, it could be beautiful.
Yes. So the machine was delighted by discovering the proof.
I think the machine has a lot to learn because that proof is still incomprehensible. We still need to find the essential idea for why that theorem is true. And looking at 100 million separate cases, I don't think gives too much insight. The purpose of a proof is not to convince you that something is true. The purpose, it's not to see whether it's true or not, it's to give you insight. And that proof is a proof in only one sense, not in the other.
If you're looking for really deep thoughts today, just note that the mathematical proof is not to convince a mathematician that something is true, just to give insight. I think we're getting to business. Is anyone with a thought here? Yes, please.
I just had a thought to what you've said, Ms. Chaitin, about what beauty is to you, and previously you've also told about your definition of truth, of beauty, and I just thought, okay, there's a saying, beauty is in the eye of the beholder as well, and then I thought, what type of beauty are we thinking about? I mean, is there any absolute beauty, as you define it from what you've just said? Probably it's order, it's harmony, it's illumination. And, well, if beauty is in the eye of beholder, can it be a criterion for truth? Because then obviously it makes it all very relative. So, well, hopefully it's not a very stupid question. I'm not a philosopher myself, but I'm just curious, you know, if you could elaborate a little bit more on, you know, is there absolute beauty, and what is it?
Yes, well, you won't get me in trouble with that, because on any deep philosophical question, there's, you know, many different viewpoints really help you to understand. There's no simple answer. I agree that also beauty is in the eye of the beholder. That's an important element. As a pure mathematician, I try to see if I can come up with a rigorous mathematical definition that captures some of the idea of beauty. But beauty is a very multifarious concept. It's concerned with love, it's concerned with transcendence, it's concerned with art, and any attempt to pin it down will only capture a small part of it. Now, speaking about theoretical physics, in pure math, there's a wonderful book from the 1940s by G.H. Hardy called A Mathematician's Apology. And it's a Cambridge University Press book published during the Second World War that influenced me a lot. Talks about what is beauty in pure mathematics. And particularly, he hates applied mathematics because it helps the war effort. So he says its hands are bloodied. And then there's another book also published by Cambridge University Press during the Second World War by a wonderful theoretical physicist who's not remembered so much. Max Born has another small book called Experiment and Theory in Physics. And there it's a cautionary tale. Everyone was enthusiastic about Einstein, about Dirac, about these beautiful equations. And he's there arguing beautifully by going one by one. He knew physics marvelously well, and saying that he believes that it's subjective and that every time we come up with a new physical theory, we learn more about the concept of beauty that's applicable to physics. And this is a posteriori, not a priori. And you know that the equations for, say, Maxwell's equations for the electromagnetic field, you can't say that they're a pure mathematician with no guidance from theory, from experiment, would never come up with these equations. So that's to agree with your statement that.
And in fact, Maxwell published them in a different form, which was kind of inelegant, and Heaviside published them in the beautiful form that everybody knows. So you might argue that even Maxwell didn't see the full beauty of his own equations because they are mathematically completely equivalent. Yes?
Yeah, he used quaternions, I think, in one formulation, which is not remembered very much. Yeah, now we shrink them down to two little equations, right? Yes. But that's because we've invented new mathematics that is built out of the concepts in Maxwell's equations.
Tensors. Welcome.
Right. Vectors, divergence, curl, all these concepts. Yeah.
I'd just like to back up exactly what you said. This is an ongoing process, and in some senses, every new discovery is adding to our appreciation of it. And there is this saying of T.S. Eliot about literature that every new work of literature actually changes the past as well, because it puts it in a different perspective. You see things which were invisible before.
But what if the ultimate nature of reality is ugly? What if nature is ugly?
Ugly.
And what if at the ultimate level, reality is ugly? What are we supposed to do with that? Yes,
I should
please.
try to comment on that. But I would start from my old saying that there is only one region or realm in the universe which is untouched by the original sin, and it is mathematics. Because in mathematics, everything is like it should be. But some people say, and this is ugly, that physics or measurements contaminate mathematics because there are some inadequacies in measurements and indeterminacies and things like that. But Einstein said that the criterion of truth of physical theory is inner perfection. And how to reconcile this inner perfection of physical theory with this contamination of mathematics? Every physical theory consists of three parts: mathematical structure, some domain of reality, and bridge rules which connect one with the other. And I think that some beauty can also be hidden in these bridge rules. Sometimes they are so beautiful, so beautifully woven. I'm going to give an example. First, not that beautiful bridge rules. Recent discovery of gravitational waves. The measurement was excellent, very beautiful and artful and so on. But how it was coordinated with the mathematical structure, with the theory? They computed few hundred of various models of spinning black holes. The work was done by something like 700 mathematicians in different parts of the world. And they picked up this model which wonderfully agreed with empirical data. And this is not that beautiful. Of course, it is admirable, it is wonderful, but aesthetically, I would much prefer what Einstein did in 1915 when he computed the bending of light around the sun. You know, he had a beautiful mathematical structure and computed that, and it agreed very, very well with an experiment. And now there is another problem. Do we regard those physical theories beautiful, which have agreed with experiments? So it will be a vicious circle. And this is an answer given by Weinberg, who compares beauty of physical theory with the beauty of horse. A horse is a very beautiful shape and things extremely aesthetically, but we demand from him also to be beautiful in winning the race. And something like that happens to physical theories.
Anyone care to comment? Excuse me? Wait a second.
to like avoid complete misunderstanding or equivocation, like because you're using the word beautiful in various senses. Could like each of you name 7 things that you find beautiful, and that would give us some starting point when you use the word beautiful, because you're saying a lot of interesting things, but none of this gets us closest to understanding of beauty.
But I would like to ask you and everybody else, is beauty something that we are supposed to understand? Or are we supposed to feel it, or sense it, or resonate with it? From what I hear and read, when an artist or a scientist or a cook or whoever is commenting on their perception of beauty, it is hardly something that I feel that can fit in a definition. You understand? But I would like to get back to the business of the beautiful horse, because since I'm an epistemologist, when I was working with Greg, analyzing the development of metabiology, it was something that happened in many stages. So he was trying to prove a theorem. And before he came to the final format of this theorem, he had to struggle with it. And suddenly he had to change a little detail in the proof of the theorem so that it would become more beautiful. And that change was related to how he would introduce mutations into this meta-biological system. So he departed from introducing mutations as point mutations, which are the mutations that are better regarded and known in nature. But mathematically, point mutations did not give him a beautiful theorem. And so he was thinking how he could make this theorem more beautiful, and then he realized that he would have to introduce algorithmic mutations instead of point mutations. So algorithmic mutations are mutations that can provide a greater mix than a simple point mutation, but they can also be point mutations. And so initially this was sort of like a little perturbing, because it set metabiology even further from current biological knowledge. But then, as an epistemologist, since my specialty is interdisciplinarity, and when you work with interdisciplinarity and you want to actually compare results that blend methodologies and techniques and languages and reasoning styles from different areas, such as biology and mathematics, or biology and the humanities, or biology, humanities, and mathematics, you are always under a little bit of a challenge if your results actually make sense. So, does a theorem, a mathematical theorem, does it make any sense whatsoever for biology? And then the first question I asked was, let's ask a biologist if it is possible to imagine biological mutations as algorithmic mutations instead of only point mutations. We didn't have the chance to talk to many biologists, but we did talk to some. And especially biologists that deal with, forget me. Yeah, no, not theoretical biology, but those that look more like computer programs, those living beings that look more like computer programs. The name in English just disappeared.
Simulations?
No, not the simulations, no.
Life?
Wait a minute. they're not microbes. They're the people who make us ill.
Phylogenetics?
Viruses, yes. No, viruses, living beings, viruses. So viruses are basically very, very similar to computer programs. And they actually do sometimes change much more as their mutations are very similar to algorithmic mutations many times. So I found this extremely interesting to see that a beautiful theorem on metabiology that is so distant from biology actually had a connection with a biological phenomenon. So the horse actually has to win races. And I'm always worried about that when we are talking about interdisciplinary studies. I know that we are here among an audience that in principle does believe in the epistemic value of interdisciplinarity, but that is not always the case. So as an epistemologist that, let's say, specializes or finds interdisciplinary studies beautiful, I'm always trying to find a way to, an argument that will actually prove the worth of interdisciplinary studies, which means it has to be beautiful, but the horse also has to win the race.
But basically, beauty works. That's the moral of the story. At least at times, yes? In this particular case, it led to a successful result. So even at the very basic methodological level, we don't see a reason why it should work, would you agree that it at least works?
It looks encouraging. It looks encouraging at any rate.
Well, we have something. Because the question we were asked was very harsh. I mean, are there any teeth to the idea of beauty? Now we have a story that it might work. Now, I don't know if that would satisfy the person who asked the question, but if it works, I mean, we have something to hold on to, right? Not as a law in logic that beauty will work, because then we would have to define it, but as a methodological method. When I am guided by something that I call beauty, by my own aesthetic judgment, then I will get to horses that run and win the races. I don't know. Yes, I noticed.
I just wanted to comment on Einstein's theory. As soon as it was created, almost everybody said, this is so beautiful, it's got to be right. Before there was really, there was one really good prediction that Einstein's theory made, that was the perihelion of Mercury. The light deflection, the observations were pretty shaky for a long time. It's interesting, there was a rival theory to Einstein's, as we're talking about horses, by somebody called Abraham. And Einstein privately said of Abraham that his theory is a magnificent stallion with 3 legs, because it just wasn't beautiful. But there's another very beautiful book I would recommend by a friend of mine in Oxford called Pedro Ferreira. He's a professor of astrophysics in Oxford. He's The Perfect Theory. It was published to come out just before the 100th anniversary of the discovery of general relativity. And it is really extraordinary to read that book, to see all of the totally unexpected things that came out of that theory of Einstein. I mean, all the theory of black holes, it's just amazing. And it stimulated the gauge theory which underlies the standard model of particle physics. The standard model, in some respects, does look ugly, but there are other aspects of the standard model which are exceptionally beautiful, and they're the bits that really follow the work that Maxwell did. And that discovery, it's the gauge symmetry of Maxwell's theory which is actually so very beautiful. Maxwell was completely unaware of that. That came very much, it was after he died, I think, that people started to recognize that there was this extra symmetry. And also I may say that Maxwell discovered his equations in a context where simultaneity was absolute. There was no hint for Maxwell that simultaneity might be relative. So all of these things come later. So I think this confirms a little bit what has already been said, that a good theory is one that not only looks good when you get it, but then does win the races, and in a most unexpected and unaware way too.
I have a question. Are there some tools which could increase the degree of beauty of a mathematical structure? One of the candidates, if you agree, perhaps could be a generalization. Do you agree?
So, could you say that again, Michael?
I am looking for a tool which increases the degree of beauty of a given mathematical theory. And my proposal, or rather question, is generalization of a structure. Is it increases beauty or not?
Well, of course, we come back to exactly what do we mean by beauty. I think it's got to be something to do with understanding and fruitfulness. This again, fruitfulness is clearly these ideas that go on. And I still think, I mean, again, let me say again, I think there is so much subjectivity in our expression and our feeling that that's beautiful. I mean, I go to a concert, a string quartet, and as it happens, I say, this is just utterly beautiful. And then I can't quite pin it down afterwards, and then I hear the same piece of music later, and it doesn't affect me. But I think I think Wilczek is right. It goes back to those very first scientific discoveries of Pythagoras, the laws of harmony. It's something to do with resonance between our inner, the workings in our brain, how our brain works, and certain mathematical relationships. I think this may be as close as we can to getting one good definition of beauty. It's something to do with resonance. Yeah.
Maybe the word harmony could...
Well, I mean, that was the laws of harmony. Harmony is to do with it's a sense, well, it's resonance, it's sort of the octave or...
Harmony is a proportion.
Is
a proportion.
A proportion, yes.
A proportion is mathematics.
Yes.
And resonance is physics. So we are back.
Well, I mean, it's just two sides of the same coin. Mm-hmm. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yes? Sure.
Yeah, I would answer Professor Heller that I definitely agree with you. That's abstraction has been a tool used very successfully in the past century in mathematics to create beauty, shall we say. The idea being to brush away the unimportant details in several situations and then see a common pattern and develop a theory of that common pattern, which can then be applied to each of the
category theory,
for example, which can then be applied to each of the original areas. So the idea of not seeing the distraction, not getting distracted by the individual characteristics of each situation, and seeing the essence, which then is a common essence. But like everything else, this strategy can be pursued destructively, and it became, shall we say, excessive abstraction became extremely fashionable. And there would be cases where somebody would postulate an abstract theory and without giving any justification for why this particular structure, mathematical structure, should be of interest, and then they would deduce at the end of their paper, mention an example which happened to be the one case which suggested this abstract theory. And this does not really give us deeper insight into anything. It's sort of abstraction for abstraction's sake. So like everything good, it can be used also for bad, shall we say.
So the method of generalization would have the limits. It would need to be done with taste.
Another phase of generalization is unification.
But can I come in there, because one of the delights while I've been here in Krakow is reading this wonderful book by Sardicano that I cited, and that resonated with me with what you said there, Gregory. He says of steam engines, what we must do is take away all the particulars that are not essential and find the thing that is essential to the working of the steam engines, of all heat engines based on expansion due to heat. And this led him to the Carnot cycle. That helped Clausius to discover the second law of thermodynamics. And look at the applications now of basically the notion of entropy and doing that. I mean, it's led on, I mean, every conceivable field in engineering, chemistry, and so forth. And it all came out of, the starting point was Sardi's just saying, Carnot saying, I just want the essential feature which is common to all in the steam engines, and that goes on and on and on. And we've got now into the gentleman who came in with information theory after my talk. It is just incredible, absolutely incredible. And that it's not so much abstracting away, it's identifying what is common to everything.
But it does lead to fruitfulness, what was mentioned just before, right? Because when you have a theory that applies to a broader class of entities, it will almost by definition be more fruitful, right? Or not? You gave an example of this not necessarily being the case.
The common element could be trivial.
Yes.
You know, the fruitful generalization is not obvious always. I mean, there always is a common... Now, could I go back to the question of maybe the universe is ugly?
Yes, please.
One reaction to that, of course, theology is one possible way of discussing that. I'll touch on that in my talk tomorrow, but Leibniz's remarks in the Discours de Métaphysique. But I think the multiverse is a reaction to the fact that maybe the laws of physics are ugly. So the idea being that maybe the laws of our universe are not a priori beautiful, but therefore we want to find something beautiful. So what is beautiful? Well, what's beautiful is the space of all possible universes, which has a structure and makes more sense, is more comprehensible than concentrating on one particular universe. And the best example of that, the best explanation of this, I think, is one that's saying, well, why? I disagree with this point of view, but I think it's fun. Saying the laws of physics of our particular universe are really unimportant because it's just like our mailing address in the multiverse, the space of all possible universes. You know, that doesn't sound particularly significant, a mailing address. I think this goes too far because with this is a metaphysical attitude which basically dismisses empirical science as a goal. So. And
it's also kind of like saying that Shakespeare wrote all possible combinations of English letters, and this is just the sonnet that we like is just one of them, right? I mean, it's not really... Yes.
We are talking about the beauty, but we forgot about the last part of this title about the truth. So is beauty connected to truth? Because we have, for example, beautiful lies. So it's not always the case. This is a question to the forum.
Well, yes, every theory is a beautiful lie. What did Picasso say? Art is a lie that helps us to see the truth. I think this applies to physical theories. They're models. So every physical theory is a simplification of the infinite complexity of reality. So physical theories are lies that help us to see the truth.
Formally speaking, in philosophy of science, a theory is never true. You don't apply the criterion of truth to theories. It's just a matter of applicability, right? So by that measure, you couldn't even speak about the connection between beauty and truth in physical theories, right?
I'm getting a bit lost. I've got a little bit lost. I don't think I can add anything useful at that point. Sorry.
Okay, anyone?
The question is what makes it beautiful? Because really, if you do not try to say what beautiful means to every one of you, this discussion is really pointless. Please do. Because you could easily say clarity or simplicity. So if you keep saying beauty, please let us understand what you're saying. I have no clue.
sorry, could you repeat that again? I have a little bit difficulty in following. Yeah, the acoustic isn't that most helpful.
No. Initially I asked you to name 7 beautiful things, and that was a Wittgensteinian solution to give. It was a simple way for you to give the meaning of the word beautiful, every one of you, as you say it. Then we would have a fair understanding of what each one of you understands by beauty, really, when you say beauty in your everyday language. But then the discussion goes on, and there is a question I still don't understand, because you keep using the word beauty, and you go about saying what is beautiful, but we don't. So, what makes it beautiful? Was this another question?
Excuse me, I feel obliged to defend the guests. I think we've heard a quite wide variety of examples of things that they deem beautiful.
Yeah.
So I guess it's up to each person in the audience to decide if that's convincing, but I wouldn't say you're right in saying that we didn't get any examples. No. I think we got a fair deal of examples and a nice justification too.
But you could say, as I was saying, you could say simplicity or clarity in the case of especially theorems. And that question was unanswered also because we really don't know what we're talking about when you are talking, every one of you, of beauty. I mean, we can gather it, but please specify individually.
Possibly the problem was you might have been holding the mic just a bit too close to you, which was causing I refrained from saying that was not beautiful. I think certainly from a science, I think a lot of the scientists that I respect keep on emphasizing the understanding it gives, the insight and the range of applicability. There are actually incredibly few theories. I disagree very strongly with those philosophers of science who say that for any given set of empirical facts, there are infinitely many theories. There are infinitely many very ugly theories, but there are actually, in the whole history of the human endeavor to understand the universe, you can probably list the really successful theories and ideas, perhaps even on just your 20 digits, or maybe even the 10 of your fingers. I don't think there's many more than that. I mean, these ideas that came out of Sardicano's study of steam engines is just one absolutely remarkable. And it's not just the applicability, it's the formula for entropy that first Boltzmann found and then Shannon found. That's one of the miracles of mathematics, that mathematics gives us. It's a bit like my expression for complexity, actually. That complexity, I think, might turn out to be really quite a fruitful concept. I'm hopeful, at least. Yes, yes, in some form or other. Yeah.
One last question.
So thank you for a voice for me, and I would like just give a quick question. Why, for scientists, when you concentrate on the theories and you try to understand the world, why the entropy and the chaos is actually ugly?
Sorry, could we have that repeated?
Entropy and chaos,
I do
why is
struggle
ugly?
with.
Why is it entropy and chaos ugly?
They are not ugly, they are very beautiful.
They are the food for beauty, I would say.
I think so. I mean, I did say in
Look at fractals. The chaos is underneath, is hidden in them, and they are very beautiful even for our eyes.
Yep, actually, from what I was saying in my talk, at least, that swarm of bees at the Janus point, on the face of it, that doesn't look very interesting. It's pretty dull. But I mean, my conjecture is that is nevertheless described by real numbers, which contain an infinite amount of information, and somehow that's the miracle of the law of gravity and quantum mechanics, that it then transforms it into incredibly rich structure we find all around us here. And then, of course, in chaos theory, which has now been established 50 years or more, there are incredibly extraordinary structures, strange attractors, and all these things, which people would say are very beautiful too.
And multiple layers of order behind chaos as well, like, you know, Feigenbaum's constant. It's a constant hidden in the midst of chaos, basically, right? It's a mathematical constant.
And one thing that hasn't been mentioned at all, of course, is fractals. I mean, the Mandelbrot set, you know, the incredible simplicity of the law that defines it, and the sort of endless richness of structure.
Well, the theory of probability, the theory that deals with random events, if you say that random events aren't beautiful, but there's a beautiful mathematical theory that treats random events, it's beautiful mathematics, it's called the theory of probability. So that's a sort of a meta-beauty. It's a beauty at another level.
And I think we will be finishing the talk with this call. And I would say that I have to admit that I started by attacking the idea of beauty because it's so weird, and we actually didn't find a satisfactory definition of beauty. I would say we're triangulating, but would I be fair to say there's a certain impulse? There's a certain impulse we may call an aesthetic impulse that's feeding what philosophers and sciences do. And I would say that's weird. I just say that's weird, because this is supposed to be an impulse of truth finding. And it doesn't really seem to be the case. And what you said about the proof in mathematics is not really being in the service of truth, in the service of illumination. I mean, that's just... I will be spending many an evenings thinking about that. So, okay, I'm just going to leave with that, because it could lead to another hour of talk.
So add one more line of poetry, this time from Keats. Truth is beauty, beauty truth, and that is all you need to know.
Yes, and good as well. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your input, and good night.
Thank you.